A mother stepped inside for just minutes to grab juice for her 4-year-old daughter, returning to find only an empty sandbox and a silence that would haunt her for over a decade. Every possible lead was exhausted while her world remained frozen in that terrible moment. Then, 12 years later, the mother searches for painkillers in her husband's shaving kit. But what she finds instead would lead her to uncover a truth so terrifying even seasoned investigators would later call it the most disturbing they'd encountered in decades of police work. The migraine hit Vera Caldwell like a sledgehammer to the temple, the kind that made the edges of her vision shimmer and blur with each heartbeat. She pressed her palms against her eye sockets, trying to counter the pressure building inside her skull as she stumbled from the bedroom toward the bathroom. The early morning light filtering through the blinds felt like needles piercing her retinas. Her bare feet found the cold tile of the bathroom floor, and she groped blindly for the medicine cabinet, muscle memory guiding her fingers to the metal handle. The mirror door swung open with a squeak that made her wince. Her searching hands found the familiar shapes of vitamin bottles, allergy medication, Marcus's prescription antacids, but no ibuprofen. The white bottle that should have been there, that was always there, was gone. "Damn it, Marcus," she muttered, though speaking sent fresh waves of pain through her skull. He must have finished it and forgotten to buy more. Again, 20 years of marriage, and the man still couldn't remember to replace things when they ran out. She gripped the edge of the sink, debating whether she could make it to the kitchen where they kept a backup bottle. But then she remembered. Marcus always kept a travel pack of painkillers in his shaving kit. Something about being prepared for headaches at the office. The brown canvas toiletry bag sat on the bathroom counter where he'd left it after his shower yesterday. She unzipped it carefully, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet morning. Her fingers pushed aside his electric razor, the silver metal still smelling faintly of his aftershave, a small bottle of cologne, travel-size shampoo, dental floss. She dug deeper, searching for the familiar rattle of a pill bottle. Her fingers touched cardboard instead, smooth medicinal packaging that felt wrong somehow. She pulled it out, squinting through the migraine haze to read the text. Plan B, 1 step. Emergency contraceptive. The words swam before her eyes, but their meaning was crystal clear. Through the packaging, she could see 2 blister packs underneath, pills visible in their sealed compartments. The migraine was forgotten. Vera stared at the package, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. She turned it over, reading the instructions, the warnings, as if the text might suddenly change to something that made sense. Their sex life had been virtually non-existent for years, not since Ruby. Neither of them could bear that kind of intimacy anymore, not with the weight of their daughter's absence crushing them both. The few times they'd tried had ended with Vera in tears, seeing Ruby's face every time she closed her eyes. A receipt was tucked beneath the package. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. CVS Pharmacy. The date was from last week, Tuesday. Marcus had said he was working late Tuesday, server maintenance that couldn't wait. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Marcus returning from his morning jog. She could hear his labored breathing, the squeak of his running shoes on the hardwood. Vera stood frozen, the package still in her hand, as he pushed open the bathroom door. He was still in his running shorts and a sweat-stained tank top with horizontal stripes, his face flushed from exertion. His eyes went immediately to what she was holding, and she watched his expression shift from confusion to something else, something sharp and dangerous. "Whose are these?" Her voice came out as a whisper, barely audible. She cleared her throat, tried again. "Marcus, whose pills are these?" The answer seemed obvious. Another woman, someone younger, someone who could give him what she couldn't anymore. Someone who didn't cry when he touched her, who didn't see their dead daughter's face in quiet moments. The betrayal cut deep, but it was almost a relief to have a reason for the distance between them. Marcus moved faster than she expected. He snatched the package from her hands, his face contorting with rage. "You paranoid bitch!" he snarled, and the venom in his voice made her step backward. "Going through my things? This is what you do while I'm trying to keep myself healthy?" "I was looking for ibuprofen." "Bullshit!" His voice thundered in the small bathroom. "You're always looking for problems, always inventing things to be upset about because you can't accept that she's gone." He jabbed his finger at her face, close enough that she could smell the sweat on him. "Ruby is dead, Vera. She's been dead for 12 years, and you're so fucked up about it that you're seeing betrayal everywhere." The words hit like physical blows. Vera felt her knees weaken. This wasn't the guilty stammering she'd expected, the ashamed confession of an affair. This was pure, volcanic fury. "You want to know what I think?" Marcus continued, his face inches from hers. "I think you're losing your goddamn mind. You see me with emergency contraception and immediately assume I'm cheating? Maybe I picked them up for a coworker? Maybe they're not even mine? But no, paranoid Vera has to make everything about her, about how I'm betraying her." His voice dropped to a cruel whisper. "Just like you betrayed Ruby by not watching her that day." The accusation knocked the breath from her lungs. It was the deepest cut he could make, the guilt she carried every day thrown in her face like acid. Marcus stormed past her toward the bedroom. "I've got errands to run. Hardware store. Try not to ransack the house while I'm gone." He yanked open dresser drawers, pulling out fresh clothes with violent movements. "Marcus, please, I just want to understand." He whirled on her again, and for a moment she thought he might hit her. His hand was raised, trembling with rage. "Understand this. You failed as a mother. You couldn't keep our daughter safe in our own fucking backyard, and now you're trying to destroy what's left of our marriage because you can't live with yourself." He grabbed his wallet and keys from the nightstand, shoving past her in the doorway. His footsteps pounded down the stairs, and seconds later the front door slammed with enough force to rattle the windows. Vera sank onto the bathroom floor, her back against the cool tile wall. The house fell silent except for her ragged breathing and the distant sound of Marcus's truck roaring to life in the driveway. Her hands shook as she pressed them against her face, his words echoing in the emptiness. Vera pulled herself off the bathroom floor. The house felt different now, Marcus's words reverberating through her skull like struck bells. The cruelty of his accusation that she'd failed Ruby, failed as a mother, cut deeper than any physical blow could have. But beneath the pain, something nagged at her, a discordant note in the symphony of his rage. She'd seen Marcus guilty before, the time he'd forgotten their anniversary, and she'd found the receipt for flowers hastily purchased at a gas station. The weekend he'd claimed to be at a work conference, but had gone fishing with his brother instead. When caught in those small marital lies, Marcus would go quiet, shoulders slumping, offering stammered apologies and promises to do better. He'd never attacked her, never turned vicious. This morning's explosion felt different, desperate, like a cornered animal lashing out. Vera found herself walking toward his home office, her bare feet silent on the hallway carpet. She paused at the threshold, hand on the doorknob. This room had always been Marcus's domain. He handled all their finances, paid the bills, managed investments. "One less thing for you to worry about," he'd always said, especially after Ruby disappeared. She'd been grateful then, too shattered to care about mundane things like electric bills and mortgage payments. The door was unlocked. He'd left in such a hurry, slamming out of the house like the building was on fire. She pushed it open, afternoon sunlight streaming through the blinds to illuminate his sanctuary. The office was exactly what she expected, meticulously organized, everything in its place. Marcus's desk dominated the room, its surface clear except for a desktop calendar and a cup of pens. Filing cabinets lined one wall, each drawer labeled in his precise handwriting. Year by year, category by category. The man who couldn't remember to buy ibuprofen kept financial records like a Fortune 500 accountant. She approached the desk slowly, as if it might bite. Crossing this line felt monumental, a betrayal of marital trust. But then she remembered the Plan B pills, the pharmacy receipt from last week, his explosive reaction to being questioned. Her fingers found the handle of the top drawer. Credit card statements organized by month. The current statement lay on top, charges listed in neat columns. She scanned the familiar entries: Shell Station, Kroger, Dunkin' Donuts. Marcus's morning coffee addiction documented in $4.67 increments. Everything looked normal, mundane, until she spotted it. CVS Pharmacy, Millbrook, $63.19. Millbrook was 45 minutes away. They had 3 pharmacies within 10 minutes of their house. Why drive that far for anything? Vera pulled out more statements, spreading them across the desk's surface like tarot cards revealing a fortune. Her hands trembled as she traced the entries with her finger. The Millbrook Pharmacy appeared again and again, sometimes once a month, sometimes twice. The amounts varied: $47.82, $91.44, $55.23. She grabbed a pencil from Marcus's cup, circling each Millbrook charge. The repetition formed a pattern spanning months. Too much money for just contraceptives. Far too much. She dug deeper, pulling statements from previous years. The pattern held consistent, Millbrook charges appearing like clockwork. But there was more. Target in Millbrook, $127.34. Kroger in Millbrook, $89.91. Always that same town, always substantial amounts. She started reading the itemized charges where available. Women's deodorant, the brand teenagers favored, feminine hygiene products, bottles of the fruity shampoo she remembered Ruby begging for when she was little, the kind that smelled like strawberries. Children's vitamins. More Plan B pills, purchased regularly. Her mind raced through possibilities. A mistress with a child? A secret family he'd maintained for years? It would explain the products, the distance to avoid recognition, his defensive rage this morning. But the time frame troubled her. These charges went back 3 years at least, long before their marriage had truly fractured. The locked drawer in Marcus's desk had always been forbidden territory. Important documents, he'd said. Tax records that need to stay organized. She'd never questioned it, respecting his need for private space, just as he respected her craft room. But now... The key was exactly where she expected, taped beneath the desktop calendar. Marcus was predictable in his habits, secure in the knowledge that she'd never violate his trust. The tape came away easily, the small key warm in her palm. The drawer opened smoothly, revealing hanging files labeled with years. She pushed past old tax returns, their joint returns that she'd signed without reading, trusting Marcus to handle everything correctly. Behind their passports and marriage certificate, tucked at the very back, she found a manila folder that didn't match the others. No label, no year. Inside were utility bills: electric, water, gas. All for 1847 Elm Street in Millbrook. All showing regular usage, the amounts suggesting full-time occupancy. Someone was living there, using power, running water, heating the space. The bills went back years. Vera's phone came out instinctively, camera clicking as she documented everything. Credit card statements, utility bills, the pharmacy charges circled in pencil. Evidence of... what? She didn't know yet, but every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. A secret rental property would require disclosure, tax documentation. This was something else, something Marcus had hidden completely. Combined with the pharmacy purchases, the feminine products, the Plan B pills, a picture was forming that made her stomach churn. She replaced everything exactly as she'd found it, even retaping the key beneath the calendar. Marcus's Saturday errands always took hours. Hardware store, car wash, sometimes 9 holes of golf with his buddies. She had time to drive to Millbrook to see this address for herself. Whatever Marcus was hiding at 1847 Elm Street, she was going to find it. The GPS showed 43 minutes to Millbrook, a straight shot down Highway 72 before turning onto smaller state routes. Vera gripped the steering wheel of her Honda, knuckles white, watching the familiar suburbs give way to scattered gas stations and empty fields. She'd made this drive before, years ago, when Ruby was 2 and they'd gone apple picking at an orchard past Millbrook. Marcus had complained the whole time about the distance, said there were perfectly good orchards closer to home. Now she understood why he knew the area so well. The CVS appeared first, anchoring a tired strip mall between a nail salon and a Chinese takeout place. Nothing special about it. Faded red letters, automatic doors, sale banners in the windows. But this was where Marcus bought those pills, where he'd been coming for years, according to the credit card statements. She slowed, but didn't stop, following her phone's directions deeper into Millbrook. The neighborhoods deteriorated as she drove. Well-maintained colonials gave way to smaller houses with chain-link fences and boats on blocks and driveways. Elm Street was nearly at the town's edge, where residential petered out into industrial lots and woods. Her GPS announced the final turn onto a road that hadn't seen fresh asphalt in decades. The street was potholed like a war zone, forcing her to slow to a crawl. Houses sat far apart here, separated by overgrown lots and the occasional abandoned car. Some properties showed signs of life, laundry on lines, toys in yards. Others stood empty, windows dark, grass grown wild. The numbers were hard to read, mailboxes tilted or missing entirely. 1847 Elm Street squatted at the road's dead end, backed up against a tangle of woods. Vera's first thought was that it looked sick. The small ranch house, probably built in the 60s, judging by the low roofline and narrow windows, seemed to huddle in on itself. Yellow siding had faded to the color of old bones. The front porch sagged in the middle, like a frown. But it was the windows that made her skin crawl, every single one covered from inside. Heavy curtains on some, what looked like newspapers taped up on others. No hint of what lay beyond the glass. The yard told 2 different stories. Weeds had overtaken what might once have been flower beds, growing waist-high in places. A rusty mailbox tilted at the curb, no name, no number visible. But the driveway was different. Fresh tire tracks cut through the gravel, multiple sets overlapping. Oil stains darkened the concrete near the closed garage door, the kind that came from a vehicle parked in the same spot repeatedly. Someone came here, regularly. Vera pulled over 3 houses down, tucking her Honda behind an abandoned pickup truck that provided partial cover. She turned off the engine and sat watching, cataloging details. A new padlock on the chain-link gate, brass bright against the rust-spotted fence. No newspapers in the driveway, no mail overflowing the box. The roof looked sound, no missing shingles or obvious damage. Maintained but hidden, a paradox that made her stomach clench. Were those security cameras under the eaves? She couldn't tell from this distance, but something about the house felt watchful, as if it were holding its breath, waiting. Movement caught her eye. An elderly woman in a housecoat walking a small terrier, making her slow way along the broken sidewalk. Vera made a quick decision, lowering her window as the woman approached. "Excuse me," she called out, manufacturing a friendly smile. "I'm sorry to bother you. I'm looking at properties in the area. My husband and I are thinking of moving. Do you know much about the neighborhood?" The woman's face lit up at the prospect of conversation. She shuffled closer, her dog sniffing at Vera's tires. "Oh, honey, I've lived here 42 years. Used to be a nice area. Very quiet. Still is, mostly." Her eyes darted toward 1847. "You're not thinking of that one, are you? Is there something wrong with it?" "Strange place," the woman said, lowering her voice as if the house might hear. "Man comes and goes at all hours, mostly at night. Drives a dark pickup truck, one of those big ones. Been doing it for years now." Vera's heart hammered. "Have you ever talked to him?" "Tried once when he first started coming around. Wanted to be neighborly, you know. But he just stared at me until I went back inside. Never said a word. Made me feel—" She shivered despite the warm afternoon. Something's off about him. Always alone, always locking up careful like. When did he start coming here? The woman's terrier tugged at its leash, eager to continue their walk. Let's see. The property changed hands maybe 14, 15 years ago. Some foreign investor. Never saw him. The night visitor started showing up soon after. I called the city about the yard a few times, but nothing ever happens. Just the yard bothers you? The woman glanced again at the house, then leaned closer. Sometimes I hear things late at night, machinery running, like construction equipment, but in the morning, nothing looks different. And once? She hesitated. Once I was walking Muffin here late, maybe midnight. She has a weak bladder, you know, and I saw his truck there. Got curious, tried to peek over the fence. What did you see? Nothing. But he must have spotted me, because suddenly he was at the gate, just standing there in the dark. Didn't say anything, didn't move, just stared until I hurried home. I don't walk past there at night anymore. Vera's phone rang, shattering the moment. Marcus's name on the screen. She apologized to the woman, who continued on with her dog, casting one more nervous glance at 1847. "Where are you?" Marcus's voice was tight, controlled. The rage from this morning had crystallized into something colder. "Grocery store," Vera lied, surprised at how smoothly it came out. "Picking up things for dinner." "Which store? Too quick? Too sharp?" "The Kroger on Madison." The lie built itself. "They were out of your coffee at the one on Fifth." Silence. She could hear him breathing, could picture him processing her words, checking them for deception. "I came home for my wallet," he said finally. "Forgot it this morning." "Oh, well, I should be back soon." "Good. We need to talk about this morning." The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. "I'll be home by 3. "Okay." "Vera?" His voice dropped. "Come straight home." The line went dead. She looked at the time, 1:47. If she left now, she could make it back before him, maintain the lie. But her eyes were drawn again to 1847, to its covered windows and watching presence. She raised her phone, snapping pictures quickly. The house, the fresh tire tracks, the new padlock. Evidence of what, she wasn't sure. But Marcus had stood in this driveway, had used a key on that lock, had disappeared into whatever lay behind those covered windows. With one last look, she started her car and pulled away, leaving the sick house to its secrets. For now. Vera pulled into the garage with minutes to spare, grocery bags hastily grabbed from Kroger to support her lie. Her hands shook as she carried them inside. Milk, bread, Marcus's coffee, the mundane items that proved she'd been where she claimed. The house felt different now, infected by the knowledge of that covered window ranch in Millbrook. She had maybe an hour before Marcus returned. His Saturday errands were predictable. Hardware store for whatever project he'd invented. Car wash, even though the truck wasn't dirty. Sometimes a stop at Home Depot to browse tools he didn't need. The routine had been the same for years, she realized. Always Saturdays, always hours-long absences. Back in his office, Vera moved with purpose now. The filing cabinets held decades of their life together, every document Marcus deemed important. She bypassed the recent years, instinct pulling her deeper into the past. Behind tax returns from 2008, 2009, 2010, her fingers found a folder that felt different. Older, the manila worn soft at the edges. Power of attorney. The document was dated 14 years ago, witnessed and notarized. David Caldwell, Marcus's younger brother, granting full control of his assets and properties to Marcus. The legalese was dense, but the meaning clear. Marcus could act as David in all financial matters. Memory flooded back. David, at their dining room table, excited about Thailand. Some import-export opportunity, a chance to finally make real money. He'd been 35 then, still chasing dreams while Marcus had already settled into family life. "Just need someone to watch the rental properties," David had said, sliding papers across to Marcus. collect rent, handle repairs. Few months, maybe a year. Vera remembered teasing him about finding a Thai bride while 4-year-old Ruby colored at the table, tongue poking out in concentration. David had laughed, ruffled Ruby's hair, promised to bring her back a princess dress from Bangkok. 2 houses to manage. That's what Marcus had told her. Nothing complicated. They'd collected rent for a while, checks arriving monthly that Marcus deposited into a separate account. Then he'd said David wanted to sell, easier than managing from overseas. The properties were gone by the following year, or so she'd believed. But Elm Street, that broken-down ranch with its covered windows, that must have been one of them. The timeline made her stomach clench. David left 2 years before Ruby vanished. 2 years. The elderly neighbor said the night visits started soon after the property changed hands. All those years of Marcus coming and going, and she'd never questioned it. She pulled Ruby's baby book from the shelf where it lived between photo albums. The weight of it, the faded pink cover with its embossed teddy bears, brought tears to her eyes. Inside, her daughter's life documented in careful detail. First smile, first tooth, first steps. The pages after age 4 were blank, waiting for milestones that never came. The last photos were from Ruby's 4th birthday party, their backyard transformed with streamers and balloons, a dozen preschoolers shrieking with joy. Ruby's face covered in chocolate frosting, gap-toothed grin wide as she blew out candles. Marcus beside her, helping with the wish. Then the final picture, taken the day before she disappeared. Vera traced it with her finger. Ruby in the sandbox Marcus had built that spring, wearing her favorite pink shirt with the butterfly print. Her blonde hair caught the afternoon sun like spun gold. She was looking up at the camera, at Vera, with such trust, such perfect happiness. Safe in her own backyard, safe with her parents just inside. Vera forced herself to study Marcus in these photos. His smile reached his eyes then, seemed genuine. The proud father, the devoted husband. But now, knowing about Elm Street, about the night visits that started years before Ruby vanished, that smile looked different. Calculating, patient. Her mind reeled against the forming suspicion. It was impossible, obscene, but the pieces kept clicking together with horrible precision. She found their 2012 calendar in the memory box, preserved because it held Ruby's last scheduled playdate, her final swimming lesson. Marcus's work schedule was marked in his neat handwriting. Day shifts only at the IT firm. Regular hours, home by 6 every evening. The promotion to systems administrator hadn't come yet. But after Ruby disappeared, she flipped forward through the weeks. The frantic first days unmarked, when time had no meaning. Then, 2 weeks after Ruby vanished, when the FBI scaled back their search and the volunteers went home, Marcus's schedule changed. Night shifts appeared. System maintenance, he'd explained, servers that could only be updated when the office was empty. The promotion required it, came with a raise they desperately needed for the private investigator. She'd been too shattered to question it. Grateful even that he could function enough to work while she could barely leave Ruby's room. Back in the filing cabinet, she dug deeper into the power of attorney folder. More documents, transfers she'd never seen. Properties moving from David's name to something called DMC Holdings, LLC. The signatures were Marcus's, perfectly legal with the power of attorney. A web search on her phone showed DMC Holdings dissolved in 2015. No forwarding information, no assets listed. But Elm Street remained somehow. Off the city's books, taxes paid from some phantom account, existing in a legal gray zone that let a man visit at night for years without questions. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. On my way home, 15 minutes. Vera's hands moved quickly, photographing the power of attorney, the property transfers, the calendar pages. Evidence of something monstrous taking shape in her mind, but still too terrible to fully acknowledge. She returned everything exactly as found, closed the filing cabinet with a soft click. In the kitchen, she busied herself unpacking groceries, each ordinary item, eggs, juice, cereal, feeling surreal against the horror building in her chest. The house felt like a crime scene now, every room holding potential evidence of something unspeakable. When Marcus's truck rumbled into the driveway, she was ready. Groceries put away, coffee brewing, a wife home from errands. Normal, except for the knowledge burning like acid in her mind. Her husband had kept his brother's property secret for 14 years, visiting at night, buying girls' supplies and emergency contraception. The facts pointed to one impossible conclusion, but her heart couldn't accept it. Not yet, not until she knew what lay behind those covered windows on Elm Street. Vera heard Marcus's truck rumble into the driveway, the familiar sound now sinister with new knowledge. Her mind raced through options. She needed to get back to Elm Street tonight, needed to know what was behind those covered windows. But first, she had to survive whatever came next with Marcus. On impulse, she positioned herself at the bottom of the stairs, gripping the banister. As his key turned in the lock, she let out a sharp cry of pain. "Marcus, thank God you're home. Can you help me?" He appeared in the doorway, filling it with his broad shoulders. Something was different. He'd changed clothes since this morning's explosive exit. The striped tank top was gone, replaced by a clean polo shirt. Fresh cologne couldn't quite mask the sharp scent of sweat underneath. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes moved over her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. What happened? His voice held no warmth, just flat inquiry. "I twisted my ankle carrying the groceries in. I think it might be sprained." She shifted her weight, wincing for effect. Marcus approached slowly, each step measured. He wasn't looking at her ankle. His gaze stayed fixed on her face, studying her features like he was reading a map, or looking for lies. "Which ankle?" The question came out sharp. "The left one. I missed the step from the garage." His hands were surprisingly gentle as he helped her to the living room couch, supporting her weight with practiced ease. But the gentleness felt performative, like an actor hitting his marks. Once she was settled, he knelt beside her, fingers probing her ankle through her sock. "Here?" He pressed against the joint. "What about here?" She winced on cue, playing up the pain. His touch was clinical, methodical. "How exactly did you fall?" "Show me the position." My foot turned wrong. Does it matter?" "Everything matters." His eyes bored into hers. "Which grocery store did you go to? The receipt should have a timestamp." "Kroger on Madison, like I told you on the phone." His fingers continued their examination. "Did anyone see you fall? Maybe offer to help?" The questions felt like a test, each one probing for inconsistencies. She kept her answers simple. Plausible? Yes, her ankle hurt. No, no one saw her fall. Yes, she'd put the groceries away before sitting down. "I'll get you some ice," he said finally, rising to his feet. While he was in the kitchen, Vera's eyes went to the entry table. His keys lay there in their usual spot, but the ring looked different, heavier. Along with the familiar keys, house, truck, office, she counted at least 3 she didn't recognize. One was brass, expensive-looking, from the same high-security brand as the padlock she'd seen on Elm Street's gate. Her phone vibrated, a text from her sister Diane. "Surprise! 20 minutes out, bringing wine and need girl talk. Marcus better not hog you." Vera's heart sank. The last thing she needed was Diane's chaotic energy complicating an already dangerous situation. But canceling would raise questions, especially if Marcus saw the text. He returned with ice wrapped in a dish towel, kneeling again to apply it to her ankle. This close, she could see details she'd missed before. Fresh scratches across his knuckles, the kind that came from branches or fingernails. One was deep enough to have bled recently. "What happened to your hands?" He glanced down, seeming surprised. "Oh, had to help clear some brush at the hardware store loading dock. New delivery got hung up on some overgrown trees." The lie came so easily, so naturally. How many other lies had she missed over the years? Marcus settled beside her on the couch, closer than necessary. His arm stretched across the back cushions, not quite touching her but marking territory. "We should talk about this morning." "Marcus, No, let me finish." His voice had shifted to something reasonable, almost caring, the voice he used when he wanted something. "I've been thinking during my errands. Maybe you were right to be concerned. Not about what you think," he added quickly, "but about us, our communication. Maybe we should try counseling again." The suggestion was so unexpected, so normal, that for a moment Vera doubted everything she'd discovered. Then she saw his eyes, still watchful, still calculating. This was performance, not contrition. "I know I was harsh this morning," he continued. "Said things I shouldn't have. About Ruby, about you as a mother. That was cruel." She made herself nod, playing along. "We both said things." Still, his hand dropped to her shoulder, squeezing gently. Too gently, like he was reminding himself not to squeeze harder. "We should work on us, but first, I might need to head to the office tonight. Server issue that can't wait until Monday." There it was, the excuse that would take him to Elm Street after dark, just like the neighbor had described. The lie flowed like water, practiced and smooth. Before she could respond, the front door burst open. Diane swept in without knocking, as usual, carrying a wine bottle and an oversized charcuterie board. "Surprise, sis. Hope you're not—" "Oh, what happened?" She finally noticed Vera's elevated foot, the ice pack. "Just a twisted ankle," Vera said. "Nothing serious." Diane immediately launched into nurse mode, despite having no medical training beyond WebMD. She deposited her offerings on the coffee table and began examining Vera's ankle with enthusiasm that made Marcus step back. "You need to be more careful," Diane chattered, oblivious to the tension in the room. "Oh, Marcus, good, you're here. You'll never guess what I saw driving over." She laughed, already pouring wine. "That creepy abandoned house on Elm? The yellow one that looks like it should be condemned? I swear I saw your truck there earlier. You flipping houses now without telling us?" The temperature in the room plummeted. Marcus went very still. Marcus's recovery was swift, almost impressive. The stillness lasted barely 2 seconds before he laughed, shaking his head with practiced amusement. "Diane, there must be 50 dark pickup trucks in this town. Half of them probably have veteran stickers." His voice carried just the right note of casual dismissal. "That house has been empty for years. City should condemn it honestly." But Vera caught the micro-expressions, the tightening around his eyes, the almost imperceptible flare of his nostrils, the way his jaw clenched before the easy smile appeared, like watching a mask slide into place. "I don't know," Diane said, pouring herself more wine. "It looked exactly like yours. Same chrome running boards and everything." "Lots of trucks have those." Marcus stood abruptly, moving toward Vera. "I should check your ankle properly. Make sure it's not worse than we thought. Let me help you upstairs to rest." "I'm fine here." "No, you need to elevate it properly." His hand closed around her upper arm, firm enough to brook no argument. "Doctor's orders, remember? From when I sprained mine last year." She didn't remember him spraining anything last year, but his fingers were already pulling her up. The grip wasn't painful exactly, but it communicated clearly. She was coming with him, whether she wanted to or not. "Oh, don't be such a mother hen, Marcus," Diane laughed, still oblivious to the undercurrents. "She's fine on the couch. Besides, I just got here." She took another sip of wine, settling deeper into her chair. "So tell me about this house thing. You know I drove past twice because my GPS went crazy? Kept trying to route me through some closed road. But yeah, second time I definitely saw your truck. Recognized the veteran sticker. The one with the flag that Ruby picked out, remember?" Marcus's fingers tightened involuntarily on Vera's arm. Ruby's name in Diane's mouth seemed to physically pain him. "You must be confused," he said, but the dismissal came too quick, too sharp. unlike the Marcus who usually humored Diane's stories, who played the patient brother-in-law. "Maybe you should head home before traffic gets bad. You know how 495 gets on Saturdays." Diane blinked at the abrupt suggestion. "It's barely 4 o'clock. "Still," Marcus's voice carried an edge now. "Vera needs rest, and—" "Actually, I need to use the bathroom first," Vera interrupted, pulling away from his grip. Something passed between the sisters, a lifetime of silent communication that excluded Marcus. Diane's eyes narrowed slightly, finally picking up on the tension. "No rush here," Diane said, deliberately pouring more wine. "So, Marcus, this coworker who's interested in real estate, anyone I know? Maybe I can give them some tips. You know I helped the Johnsons when they bought that flip." Marcus's explanation came out tangled, too detailed and yet making no sense. Tom from accounting, or was it Tim from systems? Looking for investment properties, or maybe a fixer-upper to live in. The story shifted with each sentence, technical real estate terms jumbled with IT jargon. Vera noticed the scratches on his hands as he gestured, one still beating fresh blood that he absently wiped on his jeans. She escaped to the bathroom, locking the door behind her. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone, dialing 911 with fumbling fingers. 911, what's your emergency? Please, she whispered, turning on the faucet to mask her voice. I think my husband is holding someone captive. A house at 1847 Elm Street in Millbrook. You need to send someone now. Ma'am, can you speak up? Are you in immediate danger? I think he might have our daughter there. She disappeared 12 years ago when she was 4. Ruby Caldwell. Please, check your records. He's been going to this house for years, buying girls' supplies, Plan B pills. Ma'am, that's a very serious accusation. What evidence do you have? The words tumbled out. Property records, credit card statements, the neighbor's testimony about night visits. Even to her own ears, it sounded fragmented, the paranoid ramblings of a grieving mother. We can send a patrol car to check the property, the operator said, professional but skeptical. But without concrete evidence of a crime in progress. A sharp knock rattled the door. Vera? Everything okay in there? Marcus's voice too close, like he'd been listening. Fine. Just a minute. She flushed the toilet, ran water in the sink. To the operator, please, just check. 1847 Elm Street. Please? She ended the call, splashing water on her face before opening the door. Marcus stood inches away, close enough that she had to press against the doorframe to avoid touching him. His eyes searched her face with an intensity that made her skin crawl. You were in there a while. Stomach's upset, must be stress from the ankle. His gaze dropped to her hands, steady now, then back to her face. Who were you talking to? What? No one. I wasn't. I heard voices, Vera. His tone was conversational, but his body blocked her exit. Were you on the phone? From the living room, Diane's voice rang out cheerfully. I'm ordering pizza. What does everyone want? Marcus, I know you hate mushrooms. The mundane question shattered the moment. Marcus stepped back just enough for Vera to squeeze past, but his hand found the small of her back, guiding her with false solicitude back to the living room. The touch felt like a threat. Diane had her phone out, pizza app open. There's this new place that delivers. Reviews are amazing. Vera, your usual veggie supreme? Sounds good, Vera managed, sinking onto the couch. Marcus immediately sat beside her, closer than necessary, his arm settling around her shoulders. To Diane, it probably looked affectionate. To Vera, it felt like being held in place. I really do need to head to the office soon, Marcus said, checking his phone for the third time in as many minutes. Critical server issue. Can't wait until Monday. Oh, what kind of issue? Diane perked up. You know I do IT consulting now, right? Maybe I can help. Marcus's explanation fell apart almost immediately. He mentioned SQL databases when he meant servers, confused Linux commands with Windows protocols. For someone who'd worked in IT for 15 years, the errors were glaring. Diane's eyebrows rose with each mistake. "That doesn't sound right," she said slowly. "Are you sure you—" Marcus's phone buzzed. He grabbed it quickly, too quickly, turning the screen away as he typed. His jaw was tight, fingers flying over the keyboard with urgency. Texting someone? Warning someone? The horrific possibility crashed over Vera like ice water. If Ruby was alive, if she was at that house, was Marcus telling her to hide? To stay quiet when the police came? Her daughter might be 45 minutes away, might have been that close for 12 years, and he was warning her that Mommy was getting too close to the truth. She stood abruptly, the room spinning. "I need some air." Marcus rose with her, inevitable as gravity. His hand found her elbow, steadying or restraining. She couldn't tell which anymore. "You should rest," he said. "You're not looking well." Behind them, Diane set down her wine glass with a sharp click. "Okay, what the hell is going on here?" Vera swayed dramatically, letting her knees buckle just enough to sell the performance. The ankle she'd supposedly twisted suddenly couldn't bear her weight. Diane jumped from her chair, wine sloshing, reaching out to steady her sister. "Whoa, careful!" In that moment of choreographed chaos, Vera's hand shot out toward the entry table. Her fingers closed around Marcus's keys, the heavy ring with its collection of familiar and unfamiliar brass. The metal was warm as if it had absorbed his body heat. Marcus moved faster than she'd ever seen him move. His hand clamped around her wrist like a vice, all pretense evaporating in an instant. The caring husband, the concerned partner. That mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely. "Give them back." His voice was low, dangerous, stripped of any warmth. His fingers ground into the delicate bones of her wrist, hard enough to leave bruises, hard enough to make her gasp. "Marcus, what the hell?" Diane tried to wedge herself between them, but Marcus's free hand shoved her aside. Not gently. "The keys, Vera. Now." Let go of her. Diane recovered her balance, phone already in hand. "I'm calling the police." Those seconds stretched like pulled taffy. Vera could see Marcus calculating, his eyes darting between her face, the keys, Diane's phone. She watched him decide, saw the moment he realized he'd revealed too much, gone too far. His grip loosened fractionally. It was enough. Vera wrenched free and ran. Behind her, Diane's scream mixed with Marcus's roar of fury. Her supposedly injured ankle worked perfectly as she sprinted through the front door, across the lawn, keys clutched so tight they cut into her palm. Marcus's truck sat in the driveway like a waiting accomplice. She didn't look back, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life as Marcus burst from the house. In the rearview mirror, she saw him racing toward Diane's Honda, saw her sister trying to block his path, saw him shove her aside again. The truck tires squealed as Vera reversed wildly, clipping the mailbox. Then she was accelerating down their quiet suburban street, speedometer climbing past every legal limit. Her phone was already at her ear, 911 dialed with one shaking hand while the other wrestled the wheel. "The house on Elm Street, 1847 Elm in Millbrook. My daughter is there. Ruby Caldwell. She's been there for 12 years. My husband has her, please. You have to send everyone." "Ma'am, is this the same—" "Yes!" she screamed into the phone, blowing through a red light. "Same caller, same address, but I'm going there now. He's coming too. He's right behind me. She's in the basement. I know she is." "Units are en route, ma'am, but you need to wait." Vera threw the phone onto the passenger seat. 43 minutes in normal traffic, but normal was for people whose daughters hadn't been stolen, hadn't been kept like prisoners for over a decade. She knew Marcus's shortcuts. He'd driven them enough times, thinking she wasn't paying attention. But she knew the back roads too, the ways around construction zones and traffic lights. 25 minutes. That's all it took. Driving like death itself was chasing her. Maybe it was. Elm Street materialized in the growing dusk, the sick house squatting at its end. The brass padlock gleamed on the gate, but Vera didn't slow down. The truck smashed through in an explosion of metal and chain link, the gate wrapping around the front bumper with a shriek. She kept going, ramming into the front porch steps before killing the engine. The reinforced front door might as well have been made of paper. Adrenaline gave her superhuman strength. When it wouldn't yield to her shoulder, she grabbed a garden spade from the overgrown yard, its handle rough with rust and neglect. The front window shattered under her assault, safety glass cascading inward. "Ruby!" she screamed through the broken window. "Ruby! It's Mommy!" She cleared the glass with the spade and climbed through, dropping into a living room that looked disturbingly normal. Dated furniture, clean surfaces, a TV from the early 2000s. Like a time capsule. But the industrial deadbolts on every interior door told a different story. Kitchen. She moved on instinct, finding a space that should have been ordinary, but felt like a facade. Everything too clean, too organized. And there, a door that should have led to a pantry, but sported 3 heavy deadbolts, all engaged. From below, muffled by walls and distance, she heard movement. A voice, young and terrified. "Daddy!" The world tilted. Vera's hands shook as she attacked the locks, but they were designed to keep people in, not out. She needed the keys, Marcus's keys. She still had them, clutched so tight her fingers had gone numb. The brass key slid home, tumblers clicking open one by one. The door swung inward, revealing stairs descending into darkness. A basement that felt wrong, that shouldn't exist beneath this ordinary house. The smell hit her, industrial cleaner over something else, something human and desperate. "Dad, I was good? I didn't make noise?" That voice, higher than she remembered, but with the same cadence, the same slight lisp on the S sounds. Vera flew down the stairs, finding another door at the bottom, this one with a small reinforced window. A face appeared in that window, and Vera's knees nearly buckled. 16 years old, blonde hair grown long and tangled, pale as paper from years without sun. But the eyes, those green eyes she'd counted the lashes on when Ruby was a baby, those were the same. "Ruby, oh God, Ruby, it's Mommy. I'm here to take you home." The girl, because she was a girl now, not the toddler stolen from their backyard, shrank back from the door. Fear twisted her features, the kind of bone-deep terror that came from years of conditioning. "I don't know you. Where's Daddy? He said no one was allowed down here. I've been good. I promise I've been good." Vera's heart shattered. She attacked the door with the spade, wood splintering under her assault. Behind the door, Ruby cowered in the corner, hands over her ears, keening like a wounded animal. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Marcus, breathing hard, his face twisted with rage and something else. Possessiveness. "You don't understand," he panted, reaching for her. "She's sick. She needs special care. I protected her from the world, from people who would hurt her." "You stole her!" Vera swung the spade in a wide arc, catching him across the temple. "You stole our baby!" He staggered but didn't fall, blood running down his face. "She's mine. I saved her. I kept her safe." His hands reached for her throat, but sirens were screaming outside now. Police voices, boots on floorboards above. Marcus froze, looking between Vera and the door where Ruby huddled, and she saw him make one last calculation. "Ruby, remember what Daddy taught you," he called out. "Remember our lessons." Then the police were there, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Marcus dropped to his knees, hands behind his head, but his eyes never left the door, never left his prisoner. They had to cut the door open. Inside, they found 12 years of horror disguised as care. A small bed with restraints, a chemical toilet, textbooks for homeschooling, progressing from kindergarten through high school, bottles of pills, sedatives, antipsychotics, birth control, the Plan B packages, used and discarded, and Ruby, alive but shattered, asking why they were hurting her daddy, begging them to let him go, promising she'd been good, So good, she hadn't tried to leave even when the door was open. Because after 12 years, she'd forgotten there was anywhere else to go. The psychiatric wing of Millbrook General Hospital felt like another world. Sterile white walls, locked doors with reinforced glass, the distant sound of someone crying. Vera stood at the observation window, hands pressed against the cold surface, watching the stranger who was her daughter. Ruby sat on the narrow bed, knees drawn to her chest, arms wrapped tight around them. She rocked in a rhythm that seemed both soothing and desperate. Still wearing the same clothes they'd found her in, a faded t-shirt that had been washed too many times, sweatpants that didn't quite reach her ankles anymore. Someone had tried to brush her tangled blonde hair, but she'd fought them off. "She won't let any of the female staff near her," Dr. Patel, the trauma specialist, said softly beside Vera. "Only male officers and doctors. She keeps asking when her father is coming to take her home, asking if she's in trouble for talking to strangers, meaning you and the police." Vera's throat constricted. She called him Daddy. Even when she was terrified, she called for him. Stockholm Syndrome, in its most extreme form, combined with 12 years of conditioning, isolation, and— Dr. Patel paused, choosing her words carefully. Complete psychological control. In her mind, Marcus isn't her captor. He's her protector, her whole world. We're the threat. Detective Morrison approached, holding a tablet. She was a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes that had seen too much. "Mrs. Caldwell, I need to show you some things we found. It's difficult, but it might help you understand what Ruby's been through." They moved to a small conference room. The detective pulled up images on the tablet. Not the worst ones, she assured quickly, just evidence they needed to discuss. A locked room on the second floor of the Elm Street house had yielded hundreds of photographs. Children at playgrounds, schools, public pools. All taken from a distance, all focusing on girls between the ages of 3 and 6. "Some of these go back 20 years, Morrison said. "Long before Ruby was born. We've checked. No other missing children match these photos. Your daughter appears to have been his only victim, but he was planning," Vera finished, nausea rising. Waiting. His own daughter was the easiest target, already in his house, already trusting him. Morrison swiped to another screen. "We found journals, detailed accounts starting when Ruby was 2. He was already grooming her, teaching her that his attention was special, that secrets were normal. By the time he took her, she'd been programmed to accept it." The Plan B pills finally made their horrible sense. Morrison explained it clinically, but the reality was monstrous. Ruby had started menstruating at 11. Marcus couldn't risk pregnancy exposing his secret, so the monthly pharmacy trips began. He'd maintained her physical health meticulously, vitamins, regular meals, even exercise equipment in the basement, keeping his victim healthy while destroying her mind. "He taught her himself," Morrison continued. "We found textbooks, completed worksheets dating back years. She can read at a high school level, knows algebra, has beautiful handwriting. But she's never seen the ocean, never been to a movie, never had a friend. He convinced her the outside world was full of people who would hurt her, that only he could keep her safe." Through the conference room window, Vera could see uniformed officers leading Marcus down the hallway. Shackled, wearing orange, but walking with his head high. He saw her watching and smiled. Actually smiled, like they were sharing a secret. His interrogation was— Morrison shook her head. No remorse. He insists he loves her, that he protected her from a harsh world. He's described in detail how he drugged her juice that day, carried her to his truck while you were napping. The basement was already finished. He'd spent months soundproofing it, installing locks. He's the one who called 911 to report her missing. Played the devastated father so perfectly that no one suspected. The night shifts. All those years of Marcus leaving after dinner, claiming server maintenance that couldn't wait. He'd spend hours in that basement, then come home and slide into bed beside Vera like nothing had happened. The violation of it, of sleeping next to him, eating breakfast with him, grieving with him while he knew exactly where Ruby was, made her want to scream. "There's more," Morrison said gently. The brass key on his keyring opened a safety deposit box, USB drives with dots. She paused. "More evidence, photos, videos, enough to ensure he never walks free. I won't describe them, but you should know they exist. For the trial." David had been contacted in Thailand. Marcus's brother was horrified, had flown back immediately. He'd trusted Marcus completely, signed power of attorney documents without reading them, never imagining they'd be used to hide a kidnapped child. The legal complexities would take years to untangle, but David had already hired lawyers to transfer everything to Vera, to help however he could. "Can I see her?" Vera asked. "Can I try?" Dr. Patel hesitated. "We can try, but please understand, she doesn't remember you. She was 4 when taken. In her mind, her mother is dead. Marcus told her you went to heaven, that you're watching from above, but can never come back." They walked back to Ruby's room together. Through the window, a male nurse was bringing her lunch. She ate mechanically, eyes downcast, answering his gentle questions in monosyllables. When he left, she returned to her position on the bed, knees up, rocking. Vera entered slowly, Doctor. Patel beside her. Ruby's head snapped up, green eyes wide with fear. "Hello, Ruby," Vera said, her voice breaking. I know who you are." Ruby's voice was different now, 16 years old, but with a strange flatness. "You're the lady from the basement, the one who hurt Daddy." "Ruby, I'm your mother." Ruby shook her head violently. "My mother is dead. Daddy told me. She went to heaven when I was little." Her eyes narrowed, studying Vera's face. "Are you an angel? Am I dead too? Is that why everything feels wrong?" Vera's knees nearly buckled. Dr. Patel steadied her, whispering to go slow. Vera sat in the visitor's chair, keeping distance between them, making herself small and non-threatening. "You're not dead, sweetheart, and I'm not an angel. I'm your mom, and I've been looking for you for 12 years. Every single day I've been looking." "Daddy said you stopped loving me. That's why you went to heaven." "That's not true. I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second." Ruby was silent, processing. Then, in a smaller voice, "When is Daddy coming back?" The question shattered what remained of Vera's heart. Dr. Patel stepped in, explaining gently that Ruby would be staying here for a while, that her daddy had to go away. Ruby's keening wail could be heard 3 rooms down. Later, after sedation, after Ruby finally slept, Dr. Patel walked Vera out. The prognosis was guarded, but not hopeless. Years of therapy lay ahead. Possible regression. Learning to exist in a world she'd been taught to fear. Trust would come slowly, if at all. Ruby might never fully recover the childhood stolen from her, might always struggle with what was real and what was Marcus's programming. "But she's young," Dr. Patel said. "The brain is still plastic at 16, and she's physically healthy thanks to his twisted care. There's hope." Hope. Such a small word for such an enormous journey. Vera returned the next day, and the next, sitting outside Ruby's room, sometimes allowed in for a few minutes. On the 4th day, Ruby asked a question about the world outside. On the 7th, she let Vera sit closer. On the 10th, when Vera held out her hand, Ruby stared at it for a long moment before reaching out with one finger, touching briefly before pulling back. It was barely anything, a fingertip touch lasting less than a second. It was everything. It was a beginning.